So this video is going to focus on polynomials and the type that they are. So previously we talked about monomials, but what's a polynomial? Well, poly means many, so it's many different individual terms. Now, of course, it could be a monomial on its own, because polynomial is really the general term. But notice the detail. It says a polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials. So you could have several of them, several monomials. Each monomial is called a term of the polynomial. So based on the number of terms you have, kind of changes the name. And that's what it says in the next two sentences. But you can see it right here. If I have two terms, two separate monomials added together, then because it has two terms, it would be a binomial, bi meaning two. Now, if it had three terms, such as the one here in red, well, because it has three terms, three individual monomials added together, and of course there could be minus signs on these, but because they are combined together, this polynomial is a trinomial, because tri means three, and you have three terms. Now, we had previously, when discussing monomials, talked about the degree. But when it comes to degree of a polynomial, you're not going to add up all of them individually. In fact, you're only going to look at the greatest degree. And that is going to be the overall controlling degree of the shape. So for instance, if we went back to the binomial here in blue, the x is, there's no x on the 2, so we're not even going to consider this one. So we're going to consider what is the degree of this binomial. Well, again, the constants don't do anything. And if that is not written, as in the case on this x, if it is not written, it is an automatic 1 for its exponent. So the greatest degree is the 1, because, well, the other term does not have an x and it's not higher. But compare that to the trinomial. The degree of the first term is a 2. But the degree of the second term, which does have an x, is only a 1. So because they are separated by a plus sign, we will only say the degree is whatever the highest one is. And of course, the highest one is the one with the 2 on it. So the degree of that trinomial is a 2. Now, the last thing is when we have these polynomials, we want to be able to put them into an order. And we call this standard form. And it's basically where the highest exponent is listed first, followed by a decreasing pattern. And it says that. It says a polynomial in one variable, so we're only using x's, or we're only using y's, is in standard form when the exponents of the terms decrease from left to right. So just as we read this sentence from left to right, the powers will go in a decreasing order. And you can see that here on the trinomial. The highest power was first, then the next power was second, and then finally the lowest power, which of course in this case is a 0 because it's a constant, is listed last. The only final thing we have to consider is if there is numbers in front of each of the terms. What does that constant mean? Well, overall, if you've got a 3 or 4 term polynomial, we have what's called the leading coefficient. So that is the term, that is the constant that is in front of the largest degree, leading coefficient. So it says when you write a polynomial in standard form, the coefficient of the first term is the leading coefficient. So it has to be first written in standard form. So let's do a couple of examples of talking about this standard form, the type of polynomial we're dealing with, and then, of course, kind of a review of the degree. So it says, write the polynomial in standard form, state the degree, and classify it, which is, of course, what type is it? Is it a monomial, a binomial, a trinomial? So let's write this in standard form. Which one has the highest power? Well, this has a power even though it's not written. It's only a power of 1 though, which means the x to the third power is actually bigger. So we would write this whole term first. Now notice it has a negative. Make sure you carry it with the x cubed. So first is going to be the x cubed. Now, which one is the next highest power after that? Well, we have dealt with this one, so it's no longer an option. The next highest power, well, the 3 we know is a constant, which means its power is considered to be a 0. Its degree is considered to be a 0. Its degree. So that means that this 15x to the first power, this would be a degree 1 on this portion, is written next. It's a positive 15, so I write plus 15x. Which means then, by rules of deduction, the plus 3 is last. And now it would be in decreasing order of degrees. Third degree first, then it's a first degree, and then it's the one that has no degree. So what is the overall degree? Well, it's the one that's the largest. In this case, it is a 3. What's the type of polynomial? Is it a monomial, only one term? No, it has 1, 2, 3 terms. So that would make it a trinomial. Let's do it again. Write the polynomial in standard form, state the degree, and classify it. All right, standard form means the highest degree has to go first. This right here, this 8q, has a degree of only 1. The q's exponent is a 1, even though it typically is not written when it's a 1. The next one is a q to the 5th power. So actually the degree of this monomial piece, this monomial term, is a 5. So that has to go first. So q to the 5th power. Then, of course, by rules of deduction, that means that 8q to the first power would be second. But what's the overall degree? Well, remember, we said that the overall degree has to be whatever the highest term's degree is. And this is the highest term, or the first term when it's written in order. The first term, and its degree power is a 5. So its degree is a 5. Now, what type of polynomial is this? Well, it has only 2 terms. So we would call this a binomial. Let's do one more just to kind of finish this off. Write the polynomial in standard form, state the degree, and classify it. Well, in this case, there is only 1 term. So I don't need to change how it's written. There's no order to move here. So standard form is exactly that because there is only 1 term. What's the degree of it? Well, we don't count the powers or the exponents on constants, so we have to look at only the variable. Its exponent is a 7, and there are no other variables. So the degree, the total amount of exponents, the degree is a 7. But what's its type? Well, its type, since there is only 1 single term, is the monomial. Single. Next time, we will talk about how to add and or subtract polynomials.